Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to be doing a real quick video concerning benchmarking of Nintendo 64 analog sticks for several controllers. So with the Retrobit Tribute 64 controller coming out very soon, I thought this was very important information to share with you guys. So that's what we're taking a look at. We're going to be looking at how this analog stick performs, an original Nintendo 64 analog stick that is actually very tight, how this performs. The issue with Nintendo 64 original sticks, I love this controller, but over time, these analog sticks do go limp due to the design, the plastic on plastic grinding away, and you lose sensitivity. It just kind of sucks, man. But we're gonna take a look at that. The other controller that we're gonna take a look at is another original Nintendo 64 controller, but with a GameCube Stick modification. We're going to see how that performs. And then another very popular option, the Retro Fighters Brawler 64. We're going to see how the numbers compare on this thing. So we are on original hardware using an EverDrive to use the controller testing tool. So here we go. Press and start, just getting straight into it, give you guys the information. On this screen here, if you mess around with your analog stick, you'll see the X and Y axis, register some numbers depending upon how far you're pushing on the stick. If you're not doing anything and on this screen you see, some numbers already registered, you're not even touching the stick, there's an issue. Either your stick is just garbage and it's got some drift going on there, or you accidentally held it in a direction, when you powered the system on and it registered whatever direction you held it in as that dead point, that zero, that's where it just rests. The one thing you can do with that is you hold L and R and press start, and that will reset your analog. So if you have your analog pushed up like this and you reset it, that's just like as if you turn the system on and you held the analog stick in that direction. So you see, just not holding it, it's saying, well, it's not in the zero position, it's not dead center, it's being pushed somewhere, and then dead center will be like up here somewhere. So that's where it would think it would be resting. To fix that, like I said, just don't touch the analog, L and R, and hit start, and it zeroes it out. So just a little information for you to know in case you didn't. So let's go ahead and move on forward. In this screen as well, you can press all your buttons, make sure everything registers, double check if you had an issue. Not what we really want to look at today. We just want to look at the analog stick. On this screen, it's kind of interesting. You can see how everything moves with your analog stick. See if there's any crazy stuttering. Just kind of get that range, just an idea. With this stick, it's very buttery smooth. There's virtually no resistance with it. It's very nice in my opinion. Every stick is going to be a little different. This one, if you barely push on it, you could draw some lines. But like I said, we don't really care about that too much. We want to see the benchmarking results. So on this screen, it's going to tell you what exactly you need to do. We're going to hold the analog up and hit A, upright, and just follow the directions until we get to the end. And there are our numbers. So looking at this screen, you'll see that there are 5 dots, one in the middle, top, bottom, left, and right. Those are the range dots for an original, brand new Nintendo 64 controller. And that range should be somewhere between 80 to 85. Now, anything that goes beyond that is going to be a little more sensitive. Now, going even further than that, when we're looking at this with Nintendo 64 style sticks and controllers that should function like a Nintendo 64 controller, we should see an octagon shape. Any controller that you test, the numbers are not going to be exactly the same all the way around, even on an original controller. So keep that in mind, but the big thing is seeing that octagon shape. If it starts looking really wonky, the sensitivity may be off, the throw is off, the dead zone, everything will be off with that controller. You want to see as close to a perfect octagon as you can, and not inside of those dots. If they're on the inside of those dots, sensitivity is just gone. It's gonna be a problem, and that's what happens once your stick starts going limp. So right here, Retrobit in their press release, they stated that they were getting results of 120 with their dead zone tests. I'm not sure what software they were using, but you'll see some varying numbers depending upon the software you use, that kind of thing. Your tests will not always be exactly the same numbers. But there we go. I think these results are fairly good. You're seeing the range is nice, the sensitivity is there. It's definitely more sensitive than original controller. So, you know, you're gonna hit your maximum input quicker on a controller like this than you would with the Nintendo 64 controller, that kind of thing. It's a little, you know, you just got to get used to the precision and the sensitivity. Now, if you hit the A button, then you could start comparing to some results that they've included on here. Right here, they show the new original Analogue, and those ranges are about in the 80 to 85. And then a few other like clone controllers, stuff like that. GameCube's gonna be like a square, and we'll see that in a second, that kind of thing. And then our benchmark. So we're gonna go ahead and unplug this one. But as you see, I've got what, 103, 111, 111, 108. Pretty good in my opinion. Let's go ahead and pop that controller out, and then we'll put in the original Nintendo 64 controller with the, like I said, very tight stick. So let's get into that. We've got no numbers popping up there, so everything is looking good. The analog is dead center, so let's just go ahead and go through, hitting the button here. The resistance on the original analog stick, the resistance, you could really feel it. It's not as buttery smooth as these other options. And it is definitely harder for me to try to draw lines with this just due to the resistance, but this is an original stick. This is what we had, you know, when we first got our Nintendo 64s. So a lot of people are accustomed to the way this functions. But let's jump into the benchmark. Up, right. And you really want to make sure you're hitting them exactly the way, otherwise you'll get your numbers off a little bit. So that could give you a little varying degree of test results. And as you see, boom, this is a damn near perfect stick. Like I said, I don't know if this is brand new, but this stick is definitely on point. Very, very close to what, you know, the standard is for original sticks. We got 87, 88, 87. So that's good. Original controller. The resistance kind of, it's a little hard. I don't know how to explain it. If you used an original controller, you know what I mean with the resistance. It's not as buttery smooth. That's the only thing, but it was what originally we had. So let's go ahead and get out of that. Pop in, boom, the GameCube modded stick and take a look at how that is. I used to really speak highly of these, but after looking at these results, we had a stream we just recently did, and we tested these controllers, and man, I was kind of shocked a little bit, but I figured do a standalone video to give you guys the information a little in its own little spot instead of sifting through a stream. So there we go. Yeah, we're getting that -1 on that X. It zeroed it out. It still comes back though. So this stick is going to be slightly off. The higher that number is, that would mean you would have a little bit of drift. I think a -1 and a 1 is definitely not going to be killer. If it was like hitting like 5 or so, then yeah, you'll notice some drift. And maybe it was just kind of a fluke because it's not, there it is again. But it's not all the time. GameCube Stick, let's just get into it. Let's see here. As you see the range, it's a square instead of an octagon. Just the way the controller's designed. It's very smooth, very easy to move around. If you really took your time, you can draw some lines to see that there's not too much stutter here. But that range, the sensitivity, we have to take a look at that. So let's get that started. And a lot of people would, they would default to this option because changing out the stick is very simple on the Nintendo 64 controller and very cheap. And then here you go. The GameCube sticks that were shown in the recorded version here, or the results that they had documented on here, it was more of a square. This, it's like home plate for for a baseball field. Not very nice. So that's definitely the sensitivity. The sensitivity's okay, but the precision is definitely going to be off with this stick. I don't really recommend these anymore. I never really noticed this until I tested the stuff, and then using these in game, definitely the precision is not quite there. So I would say stay away from this. I mean, it would be nice to have better options, but that is one that a lot of people default to. Now let's test the Retro Fighters. There is that. Let's plug it in. There we go. Get into it. Press start. Nothing. That's good. We're not getting any kind of drifting or numbers sticking for the X and Y. So let's go ahead and get into it. A very sensitive controller. I mean, not in a bad way, but it is sensitive, so that's good. The precision feels to be there. Definitely good. You can, if you take your time and go very slow, you can draw those lines, but that's not what we're doing. Let's get into the benchmark. Up, right, right. So there we go. Not quite an octagon. Not quite. It's still a sensitive stick, a little more sensitive than the original Nintendo 64 controller. It looks like, just like my previous test with this controller on my stream, the left side is not quite as sensitive as the right, but not drastically so. But definitely a hell of a lot better results than a GameCube stick, replacement stick, or a limp Nintendo 64 stick. Definitely not a huge issue with this, but it's not as close to an octagon as other results. So keep that in mind. Not bad because it's still not inside of those dots. If it was inside of those dots, you would really have an issue. And the numbers are not varying crazily so. It's just, if you look, left is 91, right is 106, degrees of movement there with this benchmark. We're about 15 points off from the left to the right. I'm not 100% why that is. This was a new controller that I hadn't used previously, this orange one, where I also tested a green one that's going to be clear on this video that I've used quite a bit, and I got the same results. So it's just, for whatever reason, that's the way it is. Not a huge problem, but definitely something I wanted to point out. So there we go, guys. My preference is an original Nintendo 64 stick with a solid ass analog, but that ain't happening too often. This controller, I really don't want to wear out that stick, man. I have no issue with the design of an original controller. I actually really like this. I like the way it feels. I got no problem with the three-pronged Trident action. It's just a hard time getting controllers that don't have limp sticks, man. I don't like limp sticks. I don't know about you guys. But then I feel like the Tribute 64 and the Brawler 64 are both really good options. I like the sensitivity and the precision on the Tribute 64. The sensitivity on the Retro Fighters Brawler 64 is great. The precision is pretty close. I think it's going to boil down to preference on what you want, how you like the design. A lot of people are going to prefer this because it's more of a modern design, and it's comfortable for people with bigger hands. It just works. The placement, everything works. So a lot of people are going to prefer that, and there's definitely nothing wrong with that. And then some people, I love that controller, but I always wanted a Hori mini pad, and I didn't want to spend $100 for a used one. So I love having this option. I love this controller a lot. Feels good in my hands. It is a little smaller than other options, but that's the way the Hori mini pad was made. But that analog is just so buttery smooth, and the precision is very nice in my eyes. There's no resistance with this controller. It doesn't just like flop around or anything. It's kind of hard to put in words, but it is buttery smooth, virtually no resistance. Feels great in the hands. So you're not going to go wrong with any option you choose. I just wanted to highlight these numbers to give you guys a better idea of what's going on with these options. So hey, really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me. With that said, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, bye-bye, and boom. Bye.